So, hi everyone, and I don't know, anatomy is going on very much slowly, and now we'll see about pharmacokinetics, pharmacology, chapter 2. So, it's membrane transport, absorption, and distribution of drugs. So, and route of administration, dose, latency of onset, time of peak action, duration of action, frequency of administration of drug, and all of that. So there's a schematic depiction of pharmacokinetic processes, and there's about biological membrane. So it's a bilayer, phospholipid, and cholesterol, and non-polar hydrocarbon chains and extrinsic and intrinsic protein molecules and lipid bilayer. So absorption, distribution, storage, excretion. So drugs in dosage form to drugs in solution, released and free drug, protein bound and metabolites and storage tissue and so free and bound and metabolites, urine, bile, feces, sweat and saliva. So a simple form of diagram, and there is biotransformation, and uh, so let's see how many pages are there for this chapter. So about 22, up to 22 pages are there. So general pharmacology, and so there's a pore and intrinsic protein, carbohydrate, ECF, extrinsic protein, lipids, hydrophobic, hydrophilic, and cytosol. Illustration of organization of biological membrane is given, and so something like a tooth diagram, and so glycoproteins, glycolipids, polymeric sugars, amino sugars, sialic acids, associate, organize, and fine aqueous pores and paracellular spaces, and epithelial, endothelial cells, and lateral movement, dynamic structure, passive diffusion, filtration, specialized transport, passive diffusion, and majority of drugs are foreign substances, xenobiotics, and higher concentration, lower concentration, passive diffusion, membrane filtration, lipid soluble drug, non-lipid soluble drug, aqueous pore, paracellular space, and lipodal matrix and water partition coefficient and the influence of pH, and alkaline pH, weak acid HA, and pH equal to pKa plus log A minus by HA, and ionized drug A minus unionized drug HA, log 1 equal to 0, and all of that. So actually, this medical sciences must have been a basic science before doing history and geography. Um, but unfortunately, we had time only now. So and unionized, ionized, and all of that. So 50% ionized and sodium phenobarbitone and so sodium sulfur in pot penicillin V, alkaline pH, tenfold change, and atropine sulfate, ephedrine, HCl, chloroquine phosphate, and acidic pH, and all of that. So then we have acidic drugs, aspirin, acid gastric pH, and atropine, and we have ion trapping and aspirin causing gastric mucosal cell damage, and acidic drugs are ionized most more in alkaline urine, and lipid soluble non-electrolyte in ethanol diethyl ether, and pH independent, and filtration, aqueous pores, paracellular spaces, and hydrodynamic flow, hydrostatic osmotic pressure gradient, and glomeruli, and NW is greater than 100 or 200, are not able to penetrate, and larger paracellular spaces 40 A degree, and small pores of 4 A degree, and So then we have pinocytosis, then carrier transport, and uh, so then we have a diagram with substrate A and B, and we have a poorly diffusible substrate and actively transported substrate, and illustration of different types of carrier mediated transport across biological membrane. And so there is SLC and ABC, ATP to ADP conversion is given, and flux through channels, conformational change, and so facilitated diffusion. About SLC transporters, there is the solute carrier transporters, and so there is a electrochemical gradient, and there is a muscle fat cell entry of glucose into muscle and fat cell by GLUT4. So then we have active transport, so that is electrochemical gradient low to high. Then we have selective accumulation, and then we having levodopa and methyldopa, and P glycoprotein, xenobiotics, driving forces, primary active transport, hydrolysis of ATP, and ATP binding cassette, and ATPase activity. Um, Only efflux of solute from cytoplasm either to extracellular fluid or intracellular organelle, that is endoplasmic reticulum and mitochondria. Then we have secondary active transport. So there is a short note given on MDRI gene and PGP, and so then we have CPY3A4 drug metabolizing isoenzyme. So after a short break, then so like a secondary active transport is given, and antiport exchange transport, downhill moments import, and co-transport, and all of that, and high transmembrane electrochemical gradient, uptake and efflux of drugs and metabolites, and Michaelis Menten kinetics, and the rate constant Km, and genetic polymorphism, and so half maximal affinity for the substrate density and affinity, and affect the pharmacokinetics of the drug and tissue specific drug distribution and specific transporter in certain cells and all of that. Then we have absorption, aqueous solubility, for poorly water soluble drugs such as aspirin and griseofulvin. Rate of dissolution governs the rate of absorption, and so then we have the concentration, and drugs given as concentrated solution is absorbed faster than from dilute solution, and area of absorbing surface, vascularity of absorbing surface, and so increased blood flow is also dependent, and wind hastens, for example wind hastens drying of clothes. So this author is somewhat a writer, and route of administration oral, with the epithelial lining of the gastrointestinal, and lipoidal, and example is ethanol. So salicylates, barbiturates, and morphine, quinine, and so the mucosa is thick because and absorption in stomach is slower, and because of the villi in the large intestine, small intestine, and the absorbing surface area is much larger, and I have made a note of only these words, not even the meaning of the sentences, so such that we did not have a nice time, and we had such a hurry and worry, and microbiology was occupying the maximum of our efforts and works, and pharmacology gained only a little of interest, and pathology was entirely a new subject as of anatomy, and forensic was okay, but okay, then we have a presence of food and retards absorption, tetracyclines with calcium, and food delays gastric emptying, and gentamicin, neostigmin, and penicillin G. Um, then entry-coated tablets, acid lability, gastric irritancy, and flex transporter (PGP), and digoxin, cyclosporin, and PGP, quinidin, verapamil, erythromycin, and rifampicin, phenobarbital, oral bioavailability reduction, and luminal effect, and tetracyclines with iron preparation, antacids, phenytoin with sucralfate, and so gut flora by antibiotics alterations, and um enterohepatic cycling of oral contraceptives, and digoxin. So um, gut wall effects, and altering motility, and mucosal damage, and all of that. Then we have subcutaneous and intramuscular. So the vicinity of capillaries, and vasoconstrictions, local anesthetics, hyaluronidase, and depot preparation, benzathine, penicillin, protamine, zinc insulin, depot progestins. And topical sites, we have skin, cornea, and the mucous membrane, hyoscine, fentanyl, GTN, nicotine, testosterone, and estradiol. Then we have pituitary adrenal suppression, and oleaginous base, and organophosphate insecticide, systemic toxicity, and hepatic necrosis. Um and cornea is permeable to lipid soluble unionized physostigmine, and timolol eye drops, nasolacrimal duct, and bradycardia, precipitate asthma. So this nasolacrimal duct might, the eye drops acting on the nasolacrimal duct. Timolol may produce bradycardia and precipitate asthma, and then we have mucous membrane of mouth, rectum, and vagina absorb lipophilic drugs, estrogen cream. They produce gynecomastia in a male partner. So, yeah, usually estrogen is meant only for women, and they produce gynecomastia, and so bioavailability, the rate of extent of absorption, and concentration time curve, blood excretion in urine, and a measure of fracture, and all of that. Therapeutic constant, plasma concentration, and time. Plasma concentration time curves depicting bioavailability differences between three preparations of drug containing same amount. So then local binding and biologically inequivalent things, and tablets and capsules, and so then they affect the disintegration, and they must dissolve in the aqueous of the gastrointestinal contents, and so certain drugs are digested. Drugs must be absorbed and not digested into, and and variations, and microfine tablets, griseofulvin and spironolactone, and all of that, and paracetamol, and digoxin, antimicrobial regimen. So the author is giving a good counter, and distribution. So this author has a collection of pharmacology effects and papers from different people and bind it together. See, a single person cannot write it. So, and lipid solubility, ionization at physiological pH, plasma and tissue protein. I don't know on which platform this author has created such a beautiful things and stories for me, and for me and all of the students. And so we are very thankful to Tripathi, and uh, so tissue specific transporter and regional blood flow and parallel decline and apparent volume of distribution V equal to dose administration by plasma concentration. So I'm putting on my knowledge about our our experience with the classes have been, I have marked down in a book, because I individually wantedly asked my father to order these books. We got these books, and we spent uh, about some 1,000 to 3,000 on each book, and maybe like some 10,000 for every term. And we have bought these books, and I have wantedly marked down on sketches, highlighters, and pens and pencils, and on these books to say about how much we learned. So this is not just like not a single book. Pharmacology has different 1,000 varieties of book, and so to a concern, the main books itself exceeds 100, and maybe the words might be same, but books are different. And making into what we, and we had a precious time of 1.5 year. So the first year was 1 year, and the second year was 1 year and 6 months. So we had a very nice time, and so like we finished the first year in August 2010, and in the Feb 2000. Uh, like 12 only we wrote the exam, and so such a nice time we had with but uh, I was ill for some 2 months, and I was not there to the college, and but I had a nice time there. um, I was asked to stay at home for a month. I was ill only for just 1 week or 2 weeks. Then, because there were a lot of disease spread and all of things, so was asked to stay at home, and then okay, then we have this parallel decline and all of things, And so we have pharmacokinetic concept, and we have extracellular fluid volume, streptomycin, gentamicin, 0.25 liter per kg, and binding sequestrations, diclofenac, warfarin, digoxin, 6 liter per kg. What is this L? L is about liter only, I think. Then we have propranolol 4 liter per kg, morphine 3.5 liter per kg. Easily removed by hemodialysis. So, like pathological states, example congestive heart failure, uremia, cirrhosis of liver. So these must be jotted down in points such that we have it for everyday reference. So this is not the way of presenting how many liter per kg it is, how the distribution of drug is. You must very much be concerned about. So as a scientist and a science person, because you have given us degrees in science also, so you must make it a note. Then total drug in the body 1000 milligram blood. There's a picture of blood and a syringe. Plasma drug concentration 50 milligram per liter, and V equal to 1000 by 50 equal to 20 liter. So it is an illustration of the concept of apparent volume of distribution. 1000 milligram of drug injected produces steady state plasma concentration of 50 milligram per liter. Apparent volume of distribution is 20 liters. So then we have redistribution. Highly lipid soluble drugs, and so it's distributed to brain, heart, kidney, and less vascular but more bulky tissues. And uh, redistribution results in termination of drug action and anesthetic action of thiopentone, sodium injected, and short hypnotic action 6 to 8 hours exerted by oral diazepam or nitrazepam. Elimination T half is greater than 30 Ha and longer acting. Then we have this passage of drugs across capillaries. So you have the usual capillary and the brain capillary. So let me take a break. Yeah, there's the fan running behind, because I not put the fan here because there might be sound and interruption, so that you could not listen properly. This fan running behind and interrupting my ideas. And so this is about the sound and health, and sound and speech also. So then we have the usual capillary with the endothelial cells and the intercellular pores. We are having the basement membrane, lipid-soluble polar drug, lipid-soluble non-polar drug, glial cell process of choroidal epithelium, and we are having tight junctions. So about lipid soluble entry and exit. So then we have penetration into brain and CSF. So the blood-brain barrier. um so the choroidal epithelium and the choroidal plexus, and so we have egg flex and PGP, anion transporter, OATP, dopamine, Parkinsonism, and we have the MOA, the monoamino oxidase. So the BBB, blood-brain barrier, and catecholamines, acetylcholamines, and CTZ. Um, so then we have passage across the placenta, and Then we have plasma protein binding. So there is a physicochemical affinity and the alpha 1 acid glycoprotein. Uh, so then we have drugs highly bound to plasma protein, to albumin and to alpha 1 acid glycoprotein, and so that is the TANT amounts to temporary storage of drugs. Still, the author is very much concerned about this Talayu storage of drugs and substances. So there's a place nearby Magadan Javadi. So Talayur, on the way to Tiruchengood, Sangagiri, way to Sangagiri. So he has also written about his place and uh, the liver and kidney tubules and metabolism and free drug falls and higher renal clearance and penicillin and lidocaine and albumin molecules and in vitro MIC antimicrobial and albumin molecules and so this is about plasma protein binding and we are having probenecid and indomethacin and highly bound to albumin and drug concentration in the tissues. So it's given about the skeletal muscle, heart, liver, kidney, thyroid, brain, retina, iris, bone and teeth, adipose tissue and the drug concentration. Then we have the salicylates, displaced sulfonyl ureas, indomethacin, phenytoin displays warfarin, sulfonamides and vitamin K displays bilirubin, connectors and neonates, and phenytoin and furosemide, and in hypoalbuminemia. Um, so binding may be reduced and high concentration of free drug may be attained. So then we have the tissue storage, the tetracyclines and the chloroquines. Tetracyclines to mitochondria and chloroquines to the nuclei. So this alone is very interesting and important, and thank you. We'll move on to chapter 3. So we have pharmacokinetics, metabolism and excretion of drugs, kinetics of elimination. So it is like the biotransformation and the metabolism. So like so what is today's date? Today's date is, so I'm using a pencil because previously I have marked with the pen and I should not overwrite it. So like then we have pharmacodynamic mechanism of drug action, receptor pharmacology, and we are having uh, aspects of pharmacology, clinical pharmacology and drug development. Then we have adverse drug effects. Then we have the next section, that is drug acting on autonomic nervous system. So fastly, let me finish the 5 chapters. So let me go fast. So then it has been 30 minutes and let me just to continue, I think, because and then it's like streptomycin, neostigmin, pancuronium, and biotransformation of drugs, and 4 hydroxypropranolol, and the inactivation active metabolite for active drug, activation of inactive drug, and the pro drug, uh, and the active drug and the active metabolite is given. So chloral hydrate is trichloroethanol, and morphine is morphine 6 glucuronide, cefotaxime is desacetyl cefotaxime, and allopurinol is alloxanthin, and procainamide is N-acetyl procainamide, primidone is phenobarbital and phenylethyl Then diazepam is desmethyl diazepam oxazepam. Digitoxin is digoxin, and imipramine is desipramine. Amitriptyline is nortriptyline. Codeine is morphine. Spironolactone is candrenone. Losartan is E3174. Still, it is a Polish name. And coronavirus, I have seen some comedical videos about police beating up the public. You should not do that. You can do it as a comedy, but not with the police uniform. Um, Actually, and because I respect it very much, and so I don't want to see such nonsense. And so then we have the non-synthetic phase 1 functionalization, synthetic conjugation phase 2 reaction, and minoxidil and the glucuronide conjugate of morphine, and the sulfate conjugation of minoxidil. So the pro-drug and the active form. So levodopa is dopamine, and enalapril is enalaprilat. Alpha methyl dopa is alpha methyl norepinephrine. Then dipivefrin is epinephrine. Then sulindac is sulfide metabolite. Then proguanyl is cycloguanyl. Then prednisone is prednisolone. Then becampicillin is ampicillin. Sulfasalazine is 5-aminosalicylic acid. Cyclophosphamide is aldophosphamide, phosphoramide, mustard, acrolein, and fluorouracil is fluorouridine monophosphate. Mercaptopurine is methyl mercaptopurine ribonucleotide, and acyclovir is acyclovir triphosphate. So these are very important compounds, not only for as medicinal tablets. These form the main part of the eating substances, which have an alternative name. The components of eating substances, but still not mentioned. So it is highly official. We won't mention, because if you are deprived of something, you know the drug and you take it yourself. It is a false behavior, and so it is highly restricted. So then we have non-synthetic reaction. We have oxidation. Um, then we have hydroxylation, CNS atoms, N or O dealkylation, oxidative deamination. We have reactive quinone, epoxide and superoxide, and the more stable compounds. Then we have molecular O2, and so then we are having some small notes given, and it is CYP3A 4/5, CYP2D 6, 2C 8/9, 2C19, P1A 1/2, P2E1. So it is a cytochrome P50, which is defined. And so full of chemistry. And so then we have flavin distinct from CYPs, and we are having mitochondrial cytoplasmic enzymes like adrenaline, alcohol, mercaptopurine, which are oxidized by these enzymes. And then we have reduction, and alcohols, aldehydes, quinones are reduced, and then we have hydrolysis, ester plus H2O, esterase, acid and alcohol. Then we have epoxide hydrolases and CYP oxygenases. And the nice names is it hydrolases, oxylases. Despite learning from hydrogen, oxygen, something as a food for space. Hydrolases, oxylases, giving some British name despite the French name is very easier. And our brain doesn't thinks twice. And we are having cyclization, and ring structure from a straight chain compound, that is proguanil is formed, for example. And we have decyclization. So the author is just asking me about the places, and he wants the places for rent. So he's asking Zambia now. Then example, opening up of ring structure of cyclic drug molecule, barbiturates and phenytoin. It's a minor pathway, and synthetic reaction is phase 1 metabolite, and glucuronide conjugation is given. Okay, let me take a break and continue such a large topic. Not so much, but okay, since I have a pause in my video, so the glucuronide conjugation, and phenolphthalein, and oral contraceptives and all of that, and acetylation. It is like genetic polymorphism, and sulfonamides, isoniacids, PAS, hydrolysine, clonazepam, procainamide, and methylation is methionine and cysteine. Like adrenaline, histamine, nicotinic acid, methyl dopa, captopril, mercaptopril, and sulfate conjugation, and sulfotransferases, SULT, and glycine conjugation, and glutathione conjugation. So for mercapturate, then we have tissue damages. Then we have this ribonucleoside nucleotide synthetase, and cancer, used in cancer chemotherapy. And so there is S warfarin, R warfarin. Then we have microsomal enzymes and non-microsomal enzymes, and so then genetic polymorphism shown, and the except glucuronidation and reaction, and um, so the phase 1 reactions and Hoffman elimination. So Hoffman has contributed here also, that is inactivation of drug in body fluids by spontaneous molecular rearrangement without the agency of any enzyme, that is atracurium, and inhibition of drug metabolism uh, is the next topic. And so then drugs that inhibit drug metabolizing enzymes are given. So that CYP3A4 and CYP2D6, and so then we have microsomal enzyme induction. So it is some few examples are given, and consequence of microsomal enzyme induction. So acute paracetamol toxicity and tolerance, and precipitation of acute intermittent porphyria, and possible uses of enzyme induction, and congenital non-hemolytic jaundice and Cushing syndrome and chronic poisoning and liver diseases. Then we have first pass pre-systemic metabolism. Like attributes of drug with high first pass metabolism, and excretion in urine and feces, saliva, exhaled air, saliva and sweat, and milk. So excretion in the milk, drug affecting. So that is a very important issue which has been um, very widespread in news, and so like actually bile organic acids in the feces, and lipophilic drugs and steroids. So then in the milk, so let us read about it. Excretion of drug in milk is not important for mother, but the suckling infant inadvertently received the drugs. Most drugs enter breast milk by passive diffusion. As such, more lipid soluble and less protein bound drugs cross better. And milk has a lower pH, that is 7, than plasma basic drugs, are somewhat more concentrated in it. Then, however, the total amount of drug reaching the infant through breastfeeding is generally small. A majority of drugs can be given to lactating mothers without ill effects on the infant. Nevertheless, it is advisable to administer any drug to a lactating woman only when essential. Drugs that are contraindicated during breastfeeding or need special caution are given in Appendix 3 at the end of the book. And renal excretion. Glomerular filtration, and it's normally 120 ml per minute, and it declines after 50 years of age. And we have a diagram schematic depiction of the glomerular filtration, tubular resorption and tubular secretion of drugs. Um, and rhabdomyolysis, cardiotoxicity due to acidosis, and was having pKa values between 5 to 8. And tubular secretion is about OAT and OCT, proximal tubules, efflux transporters, PGP, MRP2, and luminal membrane of proximal tubular centers. And it's greater than 120 ml per minute. So, then we have organic acid transport and organic base transport, OATP and OCT. And through that, and propanacid is an organic acid. It has high affinity for tubular OATP, and salicylates block this uricosuric acid of propanacids and all of that, and sulfenparazone and propanacid decreases the concentration of nitrofurantoin in urine, and quinidine, and examples, a lot of examples. And kinetics of, then we have kinetics of elimination. So it is and we have the clearance CL equal to rate of elimination by C, and the first order exponential kinetics and zero order linear kinetics. So then for like a person like me who is not on field, so if you stop a chief minister from observation in an outdoor area, then certainly the indoor area these books are a good companion, along with the details and the data. And so we having illustration or concept of drug clearance. So clearance is 50 ml of plasma to account for amount of drug being eliminated every minute. So the clearance is 500 mu gram per minute by 10 mu gram per ml, equal to 50 ml per minute. So like 10 μg per ml of drug is inserted into the organ of drug elimination, such as kidney or liver, and 500 μg per minute is excreted, and less than 10 μg per ml of plasma passes by, is needed actually. And so semi-log plasma concentration time plot of drug eliminated by first order kinetics after intravenous injection. A log diagram is shown, and so time in hours and plasma concentration log scale in μg per ml. IV drug distribution elimination is given, and plasma half-life is given, and the T half of the plasma, and so how many half-lives to learn actually, but the author is making certain of things, so we know at least what is T and half. So So T and half equal to L N2 by K. So K is the elimination rate constant of the drug, and where ln2 is a natural logarithm of 2, that is whether it is 1 n2 or ln2, it is 1 n2, and k equal to 0.1 by 2 or 5%, that is 0.05, k equal to cl by v, and t half equal to 0.693 into v by cl. And so this 0.69 is a very important one, and like so 1 t half 50% of drug is eliminated, 2 t half 75% of drug is eliminated, 3 t half 87.5, 4 t half 93.75, that is 50 plus 25, 50 plus 25 plus 12.5 plus 6.25, and so complete is 4 to 5 half-lives. So actually, how many times I come around my house, and like the Buckingham Palace formation and the platform and projection, and first order kinetics and zero order kinetics. So in first order kinetics, V and Cl do not change. So in zero order, there is decrease, and there is this half-life of some representative drugs. Aspirin is 4 hour, digoxin is 40 hour, penicillin G is 30 minutes, doxycycline is 20 hours, digitoxin is 7 days, phenobarbital is 90 hours. So, like repeated drug administration, that is steady state plasma concentration equals to dose rate by Cl, and dose rate equal to, so dose rate equals to target CPSS into Cl, and dose rate equal to target CPSS into Cl by F, and again rate of drug elimination equal to Vmax into C by Km plus C. So that is Michelin-Menten kinetics. And Plateau Principle. I don't know which Punyavan has found this, and Michelin-Menten has adopted it. And so, like, because it takes me almost a hour for 2 chapters or 1 chapter, and you have given us our people a nice inventory name, and there is a Plateau Principle, first order, zero order, average CPSS and dose rate, and the relationship between these, and so the zero order kinetics, and steady state is reached in 4 to 5 half-lives, and Plateau principle of drug accumulation on repeated oral dosing. So then the area of two shaded portion is equal. So like plasma concentration is given plotted up to time multiples of t half, and plasma concentration is 0.51, 1.52, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that is that the average minimum is met at 1.5 and 4, and the maximum is 2 and 4. So they have given some scribbling, and this is actually the color represents the Artur fort. That is a nearby building. So see the color. Uh, Actually, today morning, yeah, I too never forget certain things, and luckily matched off. I forgot these and all. Luckily matched off. So you see the fort. You see the maximum there, the sunshine. So see the maximum there, the average minimum. So you see a brownish color there, and the average minimum is there. Okay. So the shining on the top equals the shining in the bottom. The sunshine. So the nearby area. So that side is the Artur Fort, and so then we have the target level strategy and the loading dose. So the Plateau Principle. So okay, we have got a clue. So let's read the Plateau Principle again. When constant dose of drug is repeated before the expiry of 4T half, it would achieve higher peak concentration because some remnant of previous dose will be present in the body. This continues with every dose until progressively increasing rate of elimination, which increase with increase in concentration balance. The amount administered over the dose interval, subsequent plasma concentration plateaus and fluctuates about an average steady state level. This is known as the Plateau Principle of drug accumulation. Steady state is reached in 4 to 5 half-lives unless dose interval is very much longer than T half. The amplitude of fluctuation in plasma concentration at steady state depends on dose interval relative to the T half. The difference between the maximum and minimum level is less. If smaller doses are repeated more frequently, dose range remains constant. Dose intervals are generally a compromise between what amplitude of fluctuation is clinically tolerated, loss of efficacy at troughs, and side effects at peaks. And what the dose rate is changed, what frequency of dosing is convenient. However, if the dose rate is changed, a new average CPSS is attained over the next 5 half-life. When the drug is administered orally, absorption takes some time. Average CPSS is approximately 1 by 3 of the way between the minimal and maximum levels in the dose interval. So this is something like a mechanism, and we have the target level strategy. The loading dose equal to target Cp into V by F, and we have the maintenance dose and lidocaine, cardiac arrhythmias, bolus, monitoring of plasma concentration of drugs, and revised dose rate, previous dose rate, target CPSS, measured CPSS, and TDM, monitoring of plasma concentrations of no value for and prolongation of drug action, and T half less than or equal to 4 hour are suitable for controlled release formulations. There is no need of such formulation for drug with T half greater than or equal to 12 hour. So then by prolonged absorption from site of administration, there is oral and parenteral. Then we have transdermal drug delivery system, that is GTN. That is and we saw it previously. Then we have increasing plasma protein binding. We having sulfadoxin, for example. Then by retarding rate of metabolism, ethynyl group of estradiol and allopurinol inhibit degradation of 6 mercaptopurine, and ritonavir boosts the level of indinavir, and cilastatin protects evipenem from degradation in the kidney. And by retarding renal excretion, so it is probenecid prolongs the duration of action of penicillin and ampicillin. So that's all. Chapter 4 and 5 are remaining. I'll once again go into the fourth and come back. So then there is a diagram. So like pattern of drug release from oral control release tablet capsules. 30% of dose outside the semi-permeable membrane is released immediately, while 70% of dose is released slowly through the membrane over the next 4 to 8 hours. So there's an inert core, 70% of drug, 30% of drug, the semi-permeable membrane, fully dispersed after 6 hours. So thank you and have a nice day, have a nice time, and still we'll continue again with anatomy, and pharmacology will be continued, and pathology, I don't know in this which world I'm going to start with it. uh, Thank you.